Hi there and welcome to another edition of the How to Make Money with podcast. My name is Ryk van Niekerk and this podcast is your essential guide to practical, innovative and sometimes downright surprising ways to earn some extra cash. And who knows, it may even lead to the establishment of a business. And today's topic is how to make money with hydroponics. Now, it's an increasingly popular way to grow crops without soil. Instead, plants are grown in nutrient-rich water, often in controlled indoor environments, which allows for the faster growth and higher yields all year round. And it can be done virtually anywhere, even in a small backyard or garage. Well, with me to unpack the opportunities is Bradley Petsch. He's a horticultural consultant at Jiffy. And Jiffy is an international company based in Norway, and it provides a range of propagation systems, hydroponic setups, and other solutions for the horticultural sector. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a hydroponic system? How does it work?
Okay, the one that we do, there are many, many variations of hydroponics. They all are pretty expensive to set up. Besides being pretty expensive to set up, the maintenance of the hydroponic systems is quite intense. And I think if you don't know what you're doing, you better start learning, because you can make money, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to lose money, and that's guaranteed. I've seen many co-ops found and sorted on the north and south coast here in Natal, where group co-op might apply for funding to put up 5 or 10 tunnels. When they get the funding, they may get one successful crop, but thereafter, because I don't think they are provided with training, bottom line is that they lose money. Those tunnels are very difficult to operate. They can make you money, but unless you know what you're doing, you're going to lose money, and that's guaranteed. My system is brilliantly simple. We grow vegetables in gravel. It's a recycled system, which means all the water and nutrients are reused. We have a header tank where the water flows through the beds. They're traditionally about 30 meters long and 1 meter wide. We build the systems in 1,000 square meters. So the water rolls by gravity from the header tanks with nutrient-enriched water, rather, rolls by gravity through the beds underneath. The beds are about 4 centimeters deep. The nutrient-rich water rolls underneath the roots of the plant all the way down. The beds are at a 1 in 40 slope. So the water runs by gravity to the bottom of the beds. It's picked up by a pipe and delivered into a tank that's buried in the ground. When that tank fills up, it switches on a pump and pumps the water and nutrients back up to the top. So it's very simple. The pump is the only moving part. It's the only thing that can fail. The farm that we had here in Hillcrest, 25 years old, and we've done zero maintenance. There's basically nothing to go wrong. The only thing that can go wrong is that pump, and if you don't look after your crops properly. But our system is so simple that you don't have to be a brain surgeon to run it. The cost to set up is about 400,000. That's without installation. That's all our equipment that we supply in a do-it-yourself kit. And we also supply a detailed installation catalog with the system. So if you can do a little bit of work with your hands, you're a little handyman, you could set it up yourself. If you can't, we can do the setup installation for you. And we also provide training.
That seems to be a commercial solution.
Yes, we also have small systems as well.
Talk about those small systems.
Okay, we sell those in 2 square meters. It's a little elevated vegetable garden that's 2 meters by 1 meter. It's based on what we do commercially. It's a recycled system, but we only have 1 tank and 1 pump. So we fill up the tank with water and nutrients, switch on the pump, and it pumps the water up through the system to the top, where it rolls by gravity back into the tank again. And we use gravel as well as a growing medium. And that 2 square meters is equal to about 20 squares of growing space in the soil. So you can grow most crops that grow above ground in that 2 square meters, and it can probably feed a family of 3 people quite easily.
How much would such a system typically cost?
About 12,000.
About 12,000.
Yeah, it comes complete with nutrients, with the pump, with the elevated rotor-molded trays. It would probably pay for itself in a couple of years. My one I use at home is probably about 12 years old. I've still got the same pump. I've done no maintenance on it. The running costs are less than 20 Rand a month, and it probably requires about 5 minutes maintenance a day.
What type of crops do you normally grow in such a system?
You can do sweet basil, all your herbs, all your salads, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. The only thing we can't do are crops that grow underground, like potatoes, radishes, things like that. But all your herbs, all your salads grow beautifully in my system. and take half the time. We do lettuce, for example, in 4 weeks in the summer, 6 weeks in the winter. In the open ground, that would take 8 weeks and 6 weeks. We do it in 4 and 6, not 8 and 6.
That was my next question. What are the benefits of using a hydroponic system as opposed to just having a vegetable garden on your property?
Firstly, my system is elevated, so there's no bending down. We use gravel as a growing medium. It's sterile. There's no weeds, no cutworm, no snails. Because it's elevated and we don't use soil, there's no diseases that happen from the soil. And there's no weeds. Planting in the soil is guesswork. Unless you know exactly what the soil comprises of, and the only way you could find that out is by doing tests after every single crop. So people who are growing vegetables in the soil, although there's nothing wrong with that, they don't know if they're putting down superphosphate 232 or 411. They don't know if it's benefiting the crop because they don't know what the soil requires. They may be spending money on fertilizers, etc., and giving fertilizer to the crops, but it's not benefiting anyone because the soil may have all those nutrients available already. So you're giving soil fertilizer that it doesn't need. And without knowing, you have to have soil tests done after every single crop. Otherwise, you don't know what you're giving your veggies. In hydroponics, we have a blended soil mix that comes with the system. It's a kilo. It lasts for about 6 months. We feed the crops a balanced diet that has all the macro and micronutrients and everything that the veggie needs to grow perfectly. And because we feed from the bottom, from the roots, the veggies feed themselves. They only take up nutrients when they require it. So because they feed themselves, they grow perfectly, they grow quickly, and the produce that is grown in our hydroponics is far superior to grown in open soil because that's guesswork. Ours is science, very simple.
Well, you've said previously you need to know what you're doing to be able to get, the optimal yields. It sounds very simple. Where does the skill come in to operate these things as efficiently as you need it to be?
Well, you don't really need to have great skills because our hydroponic system does everything for you. The only problems you might have are with insects, but because it's elevated, we're eliminating quite a few of the problems already. So it's just a matter of disease control on your plants. Otherwise, our system feeds itself, it fertilizes itself. Everything grows beautifully in the hydroponic system compared to the open ground, and half the time.
Now, obviously, the 12,000 Rand solution you referred to earlier, that is aimed at households to either grow vegetables and herbs for use in the household. But do you see that some people produce the products and try to sell them to make some extra cash?
They are expensive, so your market would be selected, I reckon. But yes, you could make money from it. I concentrate more on the commercial systems because they're more viable, they're cheaper in the long term, and you can make more money from them. And that's what life is about. It's a good side hustle. As I said, my farm, hydroponic farm that we had here in Hillcrest, is 25 years old. It's still producing brilliant crops. We can produce in 1,000 square meters, just talking lettuce, 8,000 every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the time of the year. I checked with Spar recently and with Checkers. They're paying 20 Rand a lettuce. Their cost, not to the public, but what they are paying for a lettuce. So if you can produce 8,000 to 9,000 lettuce a month at 20 Rand a lettuce, running costs on my commercial system are about 14,000 Rand a month. You can do the math.
That is significant. And I would imagine you can have more than one system. Let's talk about the commercial system because obviously it can also scale. You said how big an area do you need to put up a small
1,000
system?
1,000 square meters.
1,000 square meters. And what typically would it cost to put in a system on that area?
Yeah, 1,000 square meters is a tiny farm. It's equal to 10,000 square meters of growing space in the soil. So it's by a factor of 1 times to 10 more efficient than growing in the soil. What I can produce in 1,000 squares, an open ground farmer would need a hectare, which is 10,000. And we would have 1 or 2 staff in the hydroponics. In open ground, you'd probably need 10 to 20. They spend most of their day pulling weeds. We don't have that problem.
That is an interesting proposition. And that is a business a household can make a living from just 1,000 square meters of a fully operational hydroponic plant.
Yes, if you were growing any other crops in the open ground and you had to buy a tractor or get involved in farming, the minimum input cost just to buy a tractor is over R1 million. I can put up 1,000 square meters for under 500,000. There's no hydroponic system cheaper than that. You'll get your money back within a year. And in fact, in the first 4 weeks of production, as long as you have a market for your produce, you'll start making money in the first 4 to 6 weeks. There's no other business that will give you a return like that. Nothing.
Yes, I think the critical point here is you can produce the best quality lettuce, for example, but you need to be able to sell it.
Of course. You have to have a market before you even think about doing it.
How difficult is it to get a market?
Well, we initially approached SPAR and we showed them what we could produce and they started buying from us. It's just all about your preparation. You've got to find your market. We supplied SPAR for about 10 years and then we didn't want to start doing the packaging. So we had 2 clients who came and bought from us. We supplied them with the produce. We picked it. We packaged it into plastic bags and they took it away. So it's all about finding your market. You have got a market. We can produce stunning quality veggies and herbs in my system with much easier than you can in the open ground and cheaper than any other hydroponic system. We use gravel, gum poles, and shade cloth. Nothing has to be replaced. Simple and produces stunning quality herbs and salads, as I said, in half the time it takes the open ground and with very little input costs and very little maintenance. There's no maintenance in our system.
Obviously, these products are organic, but is there a quality advantage, relative to traditionally grown products, earth-grown products?
Our hydroponic systems is way, way, way superior to growing in the ground. The crops are bigger, healthier, more color. In every respect, it's better.
Does climate make a difference? You said you're in KZN. Would you be able to do it here in Gauteng?
Definitely. The shade cloth covering our systems prevents frost from getting in, allows wind to come through the system because the veggies like to have a constant flow of air through it. So the shade cloth allows that to happen. The whole thing is covered in shade cloth. We use 40% black-white, not green or black. We use a black-white shade cloth because during the summer it reflects the heat to a certain extent, and during the winter it keeps the heat in a little bit. So you can grow most crops throughout the whole year in most regions in South Africa.
You referred earlier to some of the equipment, the only moving part being a pump. I don't think that should be an issue anywhere, but water. How much water does such a solution or such a farm use?
In every other hydroponic or open ground farming, the water runs to waste. We recycle all the water and nutrients. It's a closed system, so nothing goes into the environment, our hydroponic system. The water goes from one tank through the system to another tank that's buried in the ground. When that tank fills up, it pumps all the water and nutrients back up to the top tank. The only slightly complicated thing about the commercial system is the amount of nutrients in the system at one time. Because obviously as the water and nutrients are flowing through the system, the plants are taking up nutrients. So the nutrient level in the system is dropping. So we like to keep it at a constant level. We like to feed the plants at their optimum uptake 24 or 12 hours a day. Plants don't feed at night. So during the day, we keep topping up. Well, we do it twice a day. We take measurements in the top tank of the nutrients in the system. And as they go down, the nutrient level drops. We have a chart that we give the customers. So if the nutrient, we have an instrument called an EC meter. It measures the amount of nutrients in the water. As the nutrient level drops, if it drops to 1.8 and it should be 2.2, we have a chart that tells you you've got to add 500 grams of the 2 nutrients to bring it up to its optimum growing level. So we keep the crops at their optimum all day. That's why they grow quickly and they grow perfectly.
Aquaponics, sometimes it's used in conjunction with hydroponics.
I don't like it. You've got to spend millions on it and it's all guesswork. Fish poo, traditionally, you don't know what the poo is made up of. So you're feeding your plants with an unknown value. In my opinion, it's overrated, too expensive, and not something that's going to do well in South Africa at all. I've been doing hydroponics since about 1985. And my system that I do and that I vouch for is the basic flow grow system, which you saw a little bit of, and which I'm talking about now. All the other hydroponic systems are very expensive. They do produce fantastic results if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to lose money very quickly. Especially with aquaponics.
Aquaponics is, just to explain, is where you have a fish farm, linked to the hydroponics system.
Linked to the beds, and we use the fish poo as nutrients. But as I told you, you don't know what those nutrients are. So you're feeding your plants an unknown quantity.
There are many of these hydroponic solutions. How much do they differ, or are they pretty much similar, with only slide design?
They come in different names, but they're all very similar. We have two nutrients that we use in our system. One is called calcium nitrate, and the other one is called NutriPlex. And those two nutrients give your veggies a completely balanced feed with all the micro and macro elements and all the trace elements that the veggies need to grow perfectly.
So if somebody would be interested in buying or acquiring such an hydroponic system, what are the things they need to look for to ensure that it's a good system?
You're talking commercially or domestic?
Well, let's use your example of 1,000 square meters.
Firstly, we need an open area. We need an open, flat ground piece of land. 1,000 square meters is a tiny piece of land. It could be in someone's back garden. And then obviously whoever's going to put it up needs to find a market for his vegetables, and we provide training and we do installation. So we could give a potential buyer all this information before he went ahead with what he wanted to do. We can give him returns, the crop, what he can grow. I've got all that on that presentation that I sent to you. All that information is there. What you can grow, all the crops that we've grown anyway, and how much they can make per month, and how much you can plant per square meter, etc., etc. So we provide everything for a potential grower.
I understand your product, but, in general, sometimes there may be a local supplier where you don't provide a service. If you look at maybe a generic system, one or two things that you think is really critical to ensure success when you produce produce through such a hydroponic system.
Well, once that system is set up, it's very simple to run. The only thing that you have to manage is your disease. And if a commercial farmer supports a company like Coastal Farmers or any one of the chemical companies, the reps will come around to your farm and give you advice on crop protection and crop management. As long as you buy your nutrients and your chemicals from them. They will come around once, twice a month, come and look at your crops and tell you you've got downy mildew, powdery mildew on your leaves, you need to spray it with X, Y, or Z. They give you crop spraying programs as long as you buy your nutrients and your chemicals from them. And after a while, after 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 months, you will soon pick up disease and how to manage it. That's the most important thing in our system is management of the disease and your crop spraying programs.
Are you seeing many of these hydroponic farms within urban areas where somebody, for example, have around 1,000 square meters in their backyard?
No, because I'm only having interest shown now after 20 years.
But it's possible. There won't be any environmental issues from councils.
No, it's a closed system. It doesn't go into the environment.
So just to summarize, if you want 1,000 square meter hydroponics farm, the capital outlay would be in the region of 500,000 Rand. And if you really know what you're doing and you learn quickly, you could pay that off within a year if you find a market to sell it at.
100%.
Bradley, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your insights. I think this is a very innovative way to supplement an income and perhaps even becoming a main source of revenue or income for a household. And it's always nice to be outside and having green fingers.
Yeah, well, I hope I was able to answer some of your questions. I hope we can benefit from this somehow going forward. I'm always available to help and to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, Bradley, thanks so much. That was Bradley Petsch. He's a horticultural consultant at Jiffy. That's it for this episode of the How to Make Money with podcast. I hope you found it useful and maybe even a little inspiring. If you've enjoyed it, please like, follow or subscribe, depending on your platform, and share it with someone who's also looking for smart ways to earn more. Thanks for listening and catch you next time as we explore more practical ways to make money.